Street, in the attic rooms of the old Beaches building, are the officers of Bobby Barr, private detective. Missing wives and wayward husbands, corrupt officials and plain old dirty dealings, he's seen it all. If you need someone to follow that cab, rifle through that drawer, climb through the window of that empty apartment and dig up the dirt, call into the offices of Bobby Barr. It's cash in advance and expenses are extra. And don't call on a Wednesday afternoon if you know what's good for you.
It was another Tuesday morning, and I was in my third coffee of the day. My landlady had been on the phone again, asking when she was going to get last month's rent. So I was sending out final demands on some old bills, seeing if I could scrape enough cash together to keep her quiet. It was raining outside. It's always raining these days. I looked out across the street, wondering whether I could make it over to Forsyth the baker's without getting soaked. That's when I spotted her, crossing the street under a bright red umbrella. She stood out from the crowd with that elegant walk, these high heels, and a dress that looked like it had been spray painted onto her body, fresh that morning. I knew she was coming to see me, the way she looked behind her anxiously, the way she didn't belong in Peebles High Street, and the way she did belong in my office. I didn't have to wait long before I heard these high heels coming along the corridor. Come in, the door's open.
Mr. Barr, the private detective.
She was tall. She was blonde. And her red dress was so tight I could read the day of the week embroidered on her underwear. It said Wednesday. She was a day ahead of herself. And it hung in the air like a promise. She sat down and took out a cigarette holder almost as long as her umbrella.
Have you got a light?
I pushed a lighter and a heavy glass ashtray, the one that Freddie Fingers McTavish got put away for 20 years after he killed his brother for insurance money. She's got 10 years left, and when he gets out, he's going to come and do the same to me.
Mr. Barr, I'm told you can look into things discreetly. Can you do that for me?
Of course. Discretion is my middle name.
Really? That's unusual. What were your parents thinking?
No, what I mean is...
The thing is, Mr. Barr, there's something going on, and I want you to look into it without attracting too much attention.
Why don't you start at the beginning, Miss...
Tremaine. Diana Tremaine.
Pleased to meet you, Miss Tremaine. What's on your mind? She took a long draw on her cigarette and looked out of the window. Her red dress seemed to expand in all the right places. I leaned back to ensure a button didn't hit me in the eye.
I own a small delicatessen on School Brae, Mr. Barr, just along from the bread shop, and I live in the flat above the shop.
I see. Do you live alone there, Miss Tremaine?
Oh yes, quite alone. Why do you ask?
Just getting all the facts, Miss Tremaine. It's my job.
Of course, and please call me Diana.
She took another impressive draw on her cigarette and started telling me about hearing noises late at night behind her shop.
It started about 4 nights ago, Mr. Barr. I woke up when I heard a car door slam. It was after 3, so I got up and looked out. My bedroom is at the back, overlooking the close behind my shop. There was a van parked outside with its back doors standing open.
Was anybody there?
I couldn't see anyone, but I crept downstairs and checked my shop. There's a back door that opens onto the close. I use it for deliveries, and I thought someone might have broken in, but it was all secure.
This seems like a matter for the police, Diana. I'm a private detective and...
Oh, there's more, Mr. Barr. Let me explain.
Diana told me that the van returned each night around the same time, parking in the narrow close behind her shop at 2 or 3 in the morning. 2 men would then get out and disappear, returning later to load a heavy object covered in a cloth into the van, then depart.
On the 3rd day, I decided to confront them. I waited by the van, and when they came back carrying the heavy object, I asked them what they were doing. That's when they threatened me in Greek.
Greek?
Greek.
They threatened you in Greek?
It was definitely Greek.
What did they say?
I don't know, it was in Greek.
You don't speak Greek?
No, but I know what it sounds like, and I know a threat when I hear one.
And then what happened?
They finished loading their van and drove off. I ran inside and wrote down the license number and the name on the side of the van. I've got it here.
She took out a slip of paper and handed it over. There was a strange license plate number and the name of the company, Parthenon Olive Oil, Athens.
I sell a lot of olive oil in my shop, Mr. Barr, and I've never heard of Parthenon brand. Won't you look into it for me? It's got so I can't sleep at night. The police aren't interested. They just say no crime is being committed.
Maybe they're right, Diana.
The thing is, Mr. Barr, what if someone's setting up a rival delicatessen selling cheap olive oil? And why did they threaten me in Greek?
It's not normally the sort of thing I do, Miss Tremaine, but things are a bit slow just now, so I'll make some inquiries.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Barr. You don't know what it means to me.
It's cash in advance and expenses are extra.
Of course.
She put her cigarette in the ashtray. She moved her fingers down the low neckline of her dress and slipped her hand inside, reaching into the soft depths until it disappeared altogether. I remembered shaping bread dough into a large round loaf during my brief stint as a ship's cook. She pulled out a tight roll of £20 notes, peeled off half a dozen and pressed them into my hand. They were still warm.
Will this be enough to start with, Mr. Barr?
That's plenty. Thanks, Diana. I'll see what I can find out and I'll give you a call. And with that, she was gone. I sat for a while staring out of the window. Late night visits by 2 strangers in a Greek olive oil van wasn't much to go on. But a case is a case, so I decided to visit a lawyer friend of mine. Hamish had his ear to the ground, and if a rival was planning to set up a business in Peebles, he'd know about it.
I don't know anything about it, Bobby. Greek olive oil, rival delicatessens. This isn't Glasgow in the 1950s, you know.
Oh, come on, Hamish, something funny is going on when a Greek registered van is getting loaded up with stuff around the back of the school bray in the middle of the night.
School bray, you say?
School bray.
Which side?
Left if you're facing the river, backs onto the Chambers Institution.
Aye, so it does. And you say the van's registration was Greek?
Aye, Greek, name of Parthenon Olive Oil, Athens.
Wait, Parthenon olive oil?
Aye, but here's the thing, there's no such company registered in Athens.
No, there wouldn't be.
The Greek embassy were very unhelpful when I phoned. They said there's no such company and wanted to know my name and address.
You didn't give it to them?
Of course not.
Now look, Bobby, you don't know what you're getting yourself into here. Parthenon olive oil, Chambers Institution. You need to walk away from this one, Bobby. Call your client and tell her to forget what she's seen.
You know better than that, Hamish. I'm already in the case, and besides, I need the money. Come on, what's going on? What's the Parthenon olive oil got to do with School Bray and the Chambers Institution?
Look, Bobby, I'll tell you what I know, but if anybody asks...
I know, Hamish, if anyone asks, I didn't hear it from you.
That's right. You're right. Okay, now listen. In 1936, the Greek government set up a series of companies to trade in olive oil and other...
It was typical Hamish, a mixture of historical fact, local politics, rumour, deduction and overheard gossip. The Chambers Institution was undergoing a refurbishment paid for in part by money from a government fund for re-electing Tory MPs in marginal constituencies. The refurbishment included a cafe, possibly selling some delicatessens items. And then there was this stuff about Greek shell companies, offshore holdings, antiquities and an underground trade in olive oil. There was intrigue, adventure, money, and a world in which nothing is what it seems.
Nothing is what it seems.
I walked back down the high street and through the low archway that led to the Chambers Institution courtyard. It was quiet. Some tourists looking at the war memorial and a couple of tradesmen sitting on a bench eating their lunch. I was trying to make sense of everything Hamish had told me. Returning through the archway, I walked round the back of the building into the close behind Miss Germain's delicatessens. I noticed some white powder on the ground, trodden into the cobbles by heavy boots. I followed the footprints around to a disused double door at the back of the Chambers Institution. And that's where I found it, by the gutter and half concealed by a drain cover. It was a small human foot made of polished white stone, broken off at the ankle. I turned it over in my hand and suddenly it all made sense. I knew what I had to do next. I put the foot in my jacket pocket, checked that no one had seen me, and headed off to my office to make preparations. I had a long night ahead of me.
High above Peebles High Street, in the attic rooms of the old Veitchers building, are the offices of Bobby Barr, private detective. If you need someone to follow that cab, rifle through that drawer, climb through the window of that empty apartment and dig up the dirt, call into the offices of Bobby Barr. It's cash in advance and expenses are extra, and don't call on a Wednesday afternoon if you know what's good for you.
I'd taken a case from Mr. Diana Tremaine, who had seen men loading heavy items into a Greek olive oil van in the middle of the night behind the Chambers Institution. A refurbishment of that building was being paid for by the Levelling Up Fund to support the re-election of David Mundell, and possibly included a cafe that could threaten my client's business. Hamish had explained that the Greek government used fake olive oil companies to undertake espionage work in foreign countries. At the back of the Chambers Institution, I found a small human foot made of white polished stone, and that night I had returned to the close behind Miss Tremaine's shop. I concealed myself in the shadows, awaiting the arrival of the Parthenon Olive Oil Company van. I didn't have to wait long. Just as Miss Tremaine had described, two men got out of the van, opened the back doors and disappeared round the side of the building. If my suspicions were correct, they would return in about 10 minutes. So I had to be quick. I climbed back into the van and concealed myself under an old tarpaulin. 10 minutes later, the men returned.
You're in the first.
Just a minute. There, okay, push your int in.
The men manoeuvred a heavy, flat object into the back of the van and secured it upright with straps. I had heard them talking in low voices before they climbed back into the van, and we set off down the School Brae and out along the Galashiels Road.
How many more nights, Nicholas?
3, maybe 4. Why, you had enough already, Dimitri?
This country is cold, wet, dark. I'm ready to go home.
Oh, sure, me too.
We drove for an hour or so. From the movement of the van, I estimated we were driving east towards the coast. If my theory was correct, we were headed to Eyemouth or another town with a small fishing port. That's where I would make my move. Meantime, I felt under the cloth covering the heavy object. Nicholas and Dimitri had pushed into the back of the van. It was cold and smooth, and I could feel the shapes of human bodies and horses, just as I'd expected.
Here we are, Nicholas. Is the boat here?
Yes, park over there. Come on.
I waited until they had unloaded the van and I heard the voices of others before I climbed out and stepped onto the roadway beside the boat dock.
Who's that?
Stay where you are.
Did somebody climb out of the van?
What are you doing here?
I could ask you the same question, and here's another one. What are you doing with a piece of the Peebles marbles?
Who are you?
Bobby Barr, private detective, and before you ask, yes, I'm holding a gun.
He's holding a gun, Dimitri.
Yes, I heard him, you idiot. How did you let him hide in the van?
Me?
Yes, it was at your end.
Never mind all that. I want to know what you two are doing with a section of the Parthenon frieze from the secret room in the Chambers Institution.
We are shipping it back to Greece. Look, we are just doing our job. You need to talk to the boss.
Where's the boss?
What's going on here? Let's get this thing loaded on the boat. Okay, who's this?
Oh, it's someone called Bobby Barr. He's got a gun.
I can see that, idiot. Who are you, or what are you doing here?
Bobby Barr's the name. I'm investigating your theft of the Parthenon frieze from the Chambers Institution in Peebles.
Who says we're stealing it? This frieze belongs back in Greece. It was stolen from our country by that thief Lord Elgin in 1801.
Wait a minute. You're the Greek Prime Minister.
At least somebody recognizes me. Your Rishi Sunak wouldn't even meet with me to discuss giving us back our property. After that, we decided to take things into our own hands.
But these aren't the Elgin marbles. This is a copy of the Parthenon frieze from the Chambers Institution in Peebles. The real ones are in the British Museum in London.
What? That's not what your Mr. Mundell told me. He assured me that these are the real Elgin marbles, hidden in Peebles, with copies on display in London.
So you decided to steal them in the middle of the night, using one of your fake olive oil company vans to transport them.
Steal? We're not stealing them. We paid good money for these. And now you're telling me they're not even genuine? We were told to take them away in sections at night to avoid bad publicity. You just wait till I get my whole hands on that David Mundell and his re-election fund.
After some persuasion, I managed to convince the Greek Prime Minister that the Chambers Institution frieze is a copy of the original Elgin marbles, commissioned in 1857 by William Chambers himself. It seems our local MP had seen an opportunity to kill two birds with one stone. Settle the dispute about the Elgin marbles by convincing the Greeks to take the Parthenon Peebles frieze instead, and make some much needed cash for his re-election fund at the same time. The Greek government arranged for the return of the frieze sections, and Mr. Mundell was summoned to the Prime Minister's office. When I got back to the office the next day, I couldn't wait to tell Miss Tremaine the good news.
Diana Tremaine.
Miss Tremaine, it's Bobby Barr here.
Oh, Mr. Barr, hello.
I've got an outcome for your case, Diana. It's quite a story. Perhaps we could meet over dinner and I can tell you.
Oh, actually, Mr. Barr, I already know about what happened with the Parthenon frieze and the mix-up with the Greek government.
You do?
Yes, I can't really talk about it. You see, someone from the Greek Secret Service came to see me.
The Greek Secret Service?
Yes, they remembered how I confronted them that night and, well, they assumed I worked out what was going on and sent you to follow them. They've offered me a job. I'm flying out to Athens tomorrow morning.
A job in the Greek Secret Service because they thought you were the one who had figured out what they were doing.
That's right. Look, you won't make any trouble about this, will you? You won't tell them or anything?
Oh, of course not. Well done now. I mean, good luck.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Barr. I'm so grateful. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Diana. And with that, she was gone. The small white polished marble foot was sitting on my desk. I dropped it in the bin and stared out of the window for a long time, watching the sleet slide slowly down the dirty window panes and imagining what the view would be like on a sunny afternoon in Athens. A page of last week's Peebles News blew down the middle of the road and drifted up against the rubbish bin. A small queue had formed outside Forsyth's Bakers as the last of the day's sausage rolls were reduced in price. There was always a chance there'd be one left if I joined the queue now. I reached for my coat, lit a cigarette and thought, what the hell?
Join us next time for another thrilling adventure with Peebles' very own fearless investigator, Bobby Barr, Private Eye.